the Awareness Revolution Podcast, where we bring you alternative views on big topics that affect just about everyone. If you want to improve your life and change the world, then stay tuned. You'll hear cutting-edge health, financial, and personal development strategies from a revolutionary perspective. Warning: listening may take you outside your comfort zone, separate you from the pack, and change the way you see the world. Here's your host, Jeremy Kinney.
Last night, Marianne Williamson announced that she's going to be running for president in 2020. Now, if you don't know who she is, I definitely recommend you looking her up. I've been following her work for years, and I really liked her. So I'm going to give her some harsh criticism in this video, but I do want to start off by saying that she's great at what she does. I love her as a person. I've always really appreciated her work, and though I don't agree with her politics, I think that her other work, like her YouTube videos, you could just go on there and listen to her talk. I think they're very beneficial. I think it's a wise way to spend your time listening to her, and I just want to distinguish the two because I'm going to be giving harsh criticism of her proposals in politics, her running for president, and all that. But though I'm criticizing her politics, I think I haven't read her books, but I have listened to her on YouTube, and I think she's great. Okay, so now that I've said that and got that out of the way, maybe you might want to listen to her a little bit before you go on with this video. Really, don't stop the video, But once I'm done, I encourage you to go and check out some of her videos. But so basically, the main problem that I have with her announcement last night is that it's just more of the same, And honestly, I was expecting more from her because she's so, she's in this conscious community, for lack of a better word. So I was expecting something different. And really all we got was a regurgitation of the things that Bernie Sanders said during his campaign. I mean, what did Bernie promise? $15 minimum wage, free school, free college, free healthcare. So it's really the same exact message that Bernie had, and we see that Bernie didn't win. I mean, socialism is becoming more and more popular, more and more accepted, but, I expected Marianne to bring something new, some sort of, more conscious way of structuring society. I did expect her to just come on here and be like the rest of the socialists and just try to promise us free stuff. Basically bribe people for their votes. Hey, vote for me, I'm going to give you some free stuff. And the only thing that I heard her say that I haven't heard Bernie say, and maybe he said this a million times, but I just haven't heard him say it, is she said that she believes we need to give some reparations to black people. And the thing is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been in the media talking about reparations. So even if Bernie never said that, Alexandria is saying that. And Alexandria is 22 years old. Considering that Marianne is much older and assumingly much, much more wiser, I would have thought that she would have had something new, something fresh, some sort of new angle on her presidency that the former candidates and other politicians haven't had. When she announced this announcement, I mean, she did talk about it a little bit and tell people beforehand that she was going to be running for president, through a few YouTube videos, a few small media stations, news stations and stuff. So, we kind of heard it a little bit, and unfortunately, the videos that I saw before she made the announcement last night was the same exact content that she gave in the announcement last night. And another thing that I uncovered was that when I was watching her videos on YouTube, I noticed the same questions and the same responses in multiple videos. So that means her interviews were scripted. And I was like, it just kept falling downhill. Like, I kept noticing all these red flags. And then I watched the announcement last night, and it's the same lines from the YouTube videos, which, it's just too scripted for me. It didn't even seem natural. And I understand people wanting to script their speeches and stuff like that, but then if you're going to make your announcement, don't put out the YouTube videos giving away everything that you're going to say during your announcement. If you do put out that content, you can maybe come back to that in the announcement, but also bring some new, fresh content. I was really expecting to learn something about her vision, her goal for what she was going to do, and I didn't learn anything new, really. One, because she'd already talked about it in her other YouTube videos. Two, because we've heard the same thing from other politicians this whole time. So basically, she's just a huge socialist, wants a big, powerful government that can take care of everything and take care of us. And I don't want a nanny state. I don't want a government that has its hands in every aspect of my life. I don't want a government to take care of me. I don't trust the government, And also, she said how when she ran for Congress like 5 years ago, she was a little naive by not knowing how to run. And I think she's making the same mistake now. She's a little naive by not knowing that one person can't become president and change the world and fix all the problems. That's what everyone thinks. They think that one person can, if we just get the right person in power, we get our guy, basically our team, in power, and then everything will be all right. And it never is. No matter who is driving the ship, who is steering the ship goes in the same direction. More government, less freedom, and it doesn't seem like it's going to go any other direction if she wins. She mentioned like morals, and I think she mentioned freedom too. But these are they're nothing unless you explain to us how you're going to do these things morally. Because see, let's go to reparations. How are you going to give these reparations morally? She kept talking about morally, the morals. Okay, well, those may be your morals. You may think it's the moral thing to do is to give black people a bunch of money. But what if I don't? So my question to Marianne, if you were elected president, what would you do if I decided I did not want to opt in to your socialist programs? Let's say I don't want to pay for taxes that are going to go towards reparations for black people. Let's say I don't want to pay for health care for everyone. What's going to happen to me? What are you going to do? Are you going to send guys to my house with guns? And if so, is that the moral thing, you think? That's the moral high ground. Pay up, or we'll come to your house, and if you resist, we're going to shoot you. We're going to throw you in a cage, and if you resist, we're going to shoot you in front of your family. Is that what you think is the moral ground? Okay, well, no. Let's say she doesn't. Like, no, I wouldn't do that. Okay, so then where's the money going to come from? If you're not going to force people at gunpoint to pay for it, like we pay through taxes to pay for everything else. If you're not going to force people at gunpoint to pay for all these free things you're offering everyone, how are you going to pay for it? There's only one other way to pay for it, and that's create money out of thin air. That's to just create money and do it. And that's what the government likes to do, because then they don't have to tax the people. But it's an invisible tax. It's a stealth tax. Because everyone that's been saving money, working hard, saving money, that money that they have saved up loses value. The value of the dollar goes down. And you're essentially stealing purchasing power from all the people who have been responsible enough to save for their future. So either way, you're taking from people. Wealth redistribution, taxes, whatever you want to call it, is theft. I'll link to a post that I made on my website called Taxation is Theft. That'll be in the description below. And I think it's a really strong case. I mean, simply put, theft is when you take someone's property from them against their will. So if you force people to give up their property against their will, you're stealing from them. And she uses the example with reparations. She's like, well, the Germans paid reparations to the Jews. Okay? The difference here is they did that, they worked that all out back then. So it was people who were around during that time and who were involved paying people who were around and involved. When she talks about reparations today, what she's suggesting is people who were never slave owners paying reparations to people who were never slaves. That's a totally different ballgame. You can't compare the two. You can't compare reparations in America from something that happened 200 years ago and more to something that happened, less than 100 years ago, and they decided it during that time. You see, that's the big difference. Is, this is 200 years later. All those people are dead and gone. So it's like, oh, well, but the black people are still oppressed because of it. They've had the short end of the stick. I don't want to get into the whole thing. I actually did a podcast episode on white guilt and why no one should have it. And I'll link to that also. And the point is the black people here in America today are 20 to 50 times as rich as what they would have been if they would have stayed in Africa. So their ancestors paid a heavy price for them to be here today. Maybe instead of feeling bad about it, maybe they should be appreciative to be here, because they're definitely better off. Are they as well off as white people? Not on average, okay? But does that mean that we should start giving up our money to them? Of course not, right? And as I've shown in the other videos, the main determining factor in success and average income is not the color of your skin. It is that whether or not you're born into a two-parent household or a single-parent household, because black families that are married with a father and mother in the picture, they have a roughly 7% chance of being in poverty, whereas a single white mother, they have a 27% chance of being in poverty. So there's no privilege, all right? It's just blacks disproportionately have single-parent households, and that's the poverty reason. And the rates have only went up. They used to be like 70-something%, I think, in the 50s, of black kids were born with two parents. So this is a recent thing. So it has to do with them, their culture. And it isn't because of the color of the skin, and it isn't because of racism, but politicians like to blame it on the color of the skin and racism because it gives them a job, it gives them something to do. People like to blame it on color of the skin because it's something that no one can change. I can't change the fact that I'm white. They can't change the fact that they're black. So as long as we can't change that, we need government to kind of shift things around a little bit. The whole thing's a scam. And it's very unfortunate for someone so wise and smart to fall for this stuff, because socialism has never worked, and in fact has killed lots of people. All these different regimes. You can't have a central person or organization planning everything. Central planning leads to disaster. And like I said, she never says how she's going to pay for anything. She never says who's going to pay the reparations. When you go get a job, and I'm assuming you put your ethnicity on there. I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. It's been a while since I signed W-2s. But my point is what are you going to do? Check that box and say I'm white? And then all of a sudden you're going to be hit with new taxes that didn't go to black people? I mean, that there's so many different problems with that. You know, not all white people, only 1.4% of Americans were slave owners at the height of slavery. And white people fought to end slavery. Like literally in the Civil War, there was white people fighting each other. So what if my ancestors fought to end slavery? In fact, white people owned slaves during a small portion of time. Slavery happened all over the world for thousands of years. And we owned them for a sliver of that time. And we arguably ended slavery. And we're still blamed for it. And it's sad to see this perpetuate in our culture. And it's sad to see someone so knowledgeable fall for this. Yeah, we need to get past this. And the way to get past this is not to give them money. You know, even giving them money doesn't even help anyway. But look at all the social programs that we've created. All it's done is make things worse. The more we give, the bigger the problem gets. The more dependent on the money that these people become. And that's why we keep giving more and more, and we still have the poverty. It's the welfare trap. I mean, that's what incentivizes the poor income families to split up, because they know that they can just split up with their man and get taken care of by the government. So that's a lot of the reason why the blacks are still in poverty. It's because white people who don't understand what's going on try to fix things by doing things that sound good, and it doesn't work. On top of that, we had some black people who were slave owners. So really, what would if white people are giving money to black people, what could end up happening? And this is going to happen in some cases. You're going to have white people whose ancestors were never even slave owners. You know, because again, not only was there only 1.4% of us that owned slaves, but white people came here after slavery as well. So we may have not even been here during that time. And if we were here, maybe we fought to abolish it. But there's going to be white people whose ancestors were never slaves giving money to black people whose ancestors were slave owners. The whole thing makes no sense, and it doesn't take long of sitting around talking about it and thinking about it before you figure it out. Now, of course, anyone can come to the conclusions that she came to. We spend too much money on war. We need to focus more on peace. I mean, you know, a middle school student could figure that out. That's not some big consciousness, you know, thought process that creates that. It's pretty simple. Everyone knows that. We can't just point to these problems and be like, oh, look, they're messing up so much. Let me in there and I'll do it this way. Well, you're going to be messing it up too. Just because these people are doing such a bad job doesn't mean we need to throw your reckless butt in there. And again, I doubt you're ever going to hear this, but Marianne, come on. It's ridiculous. Yes, they're terrible for spending all that money on military. And I would much rather see them spend it on healthcare and education. But that doesn't mean that's the role of the federal government. It's not even constitutional. The founding fathers and the founding documents strictly were designed to limit the power of the federal government. Not make it so powerful that it just creates everything, you know, for the people. Oh, you need healthcare, so we're going to... No. Federal government's supposed to be small, limited. Not all up in everything, telling people, no, I know you wouldn't work for $10 an hour, but that's illegal. You two cannot enter into an agreement. I don't like that. It's not the role of the federal government to decide all these things for people. Another thing that caught my attention, I could go on about the reparations for longer, but I want to move on because there's so much more. And I've done other videos on the topics, so check those out on my channel. But like, she kept talking about blaming it on the corporations, and I get it. I'm totally with that. And then she talks about concentrating the wealth into the hands of a few. But she never explains how she's going to fix that. So I have to assume she's going to fix that by stealing money from people who have it and giving it to people who don't have it. I mean, you're talking about theft. That's what robbing people is. People usually don't rob people that are more broke than they are. People rob people with the money. Why do you rob a bank? It's where the money is. Why do you rob the rich? That's where the money is. So, it's not moral. Okay? And if you're going to offer free health care, free college, all that's going to do is concentrate the wealth into the hands of a few. Let me explain. Let's say you have a small company and you're in the healthcare field and you're just trying to get established, and you have this health product or supplement or whatever. In the healthcare field, if you're going to implement some sort of free program that's going to include 320 plus million people, any program that can accommodate that many people is going to have to be really big scale, right? So whatever whatever companies that they're dealing with, they're going to have to be huge companies. She's like, oh, these big multinational conglomerates, they're the problem. So give me power in government, and then I'm going to give you free healthcare. Well, which companies are going to provide this healthcare, Marianne? The same damn companies provide it now, except you're going to concentrate the wealth into even fewer hands by implementing one healthcare strategy for the entire country. Because if there's multiple businesses competing, it's going to keep the prices down. People get to choose what healthcare service and company that they want to go to. And, you're going to have 20 companies competing to provide that product or service to the consumer. Whereas if the government's got a contract for it all to be provided, well, then there's one company that's going to get the contract, basically. I'm keeping things simple here. And they're going to have to provide their product or service for the entire country, and they're going to have to be huge to do so. I have another post called, Should Government Provide Free Healthcare? And my short answer is no. There's so many different things that's wrong with that. The only thing it has going for itself is that it sounds good. In fact, that's the only thing that socialism has going for itself. Pretty much, is it sounds really good. But no, the government doesn't have any business providing education for people. It's unconstitutional, first of all, because the 10th Amendment limits them if it's not granted to the federal government in the Constitution. The 10th Amendment says the power is reserved to the states. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say the federal government is to provide college education or any kind of education for everyone. So it's unconstitutional. So basically what she's talking about is un-American and is illegal. You know what I mean? You could talk about maybe amending the Constitution or something like that, but when you just start talking about doing it, you're talking about committing crimes. But she doesn't even understand this. She spent so much time in her own field that she hasn't spent a lot of time in other fields. She hasn't spent the time learning about how taxation is theft. Even if it's, no matter how much money the person has, if you're taking the money away from them against their will, it is immoral, okay? And it doesn't matter if it's one person stealing from one person, or if it's the 51% stealing from the 49%, or the 51% stealing from the 1%. It's all theft, okay? And she's overlooking these facts, these ideas, because she's still stuck in the old model of the way that we've been running things, and it's a disaster. It's been a disaster this whole time. Government is like, basically the Lord of the Rings analogy. The ring is the government, and when people get near it, it turns them into the worst version of themselves. And that's why no matter who you put in charge, we still end up with the same problems. And plus, the president doesn't run things. Was she going to be a dictator? She doesn't even realize this isn't the role of the president. The president just not supposed to get in there and start doing all this stuff. It just boggles my mind. I mean, I know her heart's in the right place. I know she's a great person. I would bet on it. But she's been so involved with her kind of work that she's lost a grip from reality, in my opinion. And that's probably has a lot to do with the fact that she usually speaks to pretty good people. Like, the people in her comments, because of the type of work that she does, it attracts good people to her. She doesn't realize the wolves, the animals that are in Congress, and the level of corruption that exists there. She doesn't understand what these people are willing to go to. Like, they will do anything. You're talking about the war machine. You think you're going to be able to go up against the war machine? You think you're going to be able to just tell all these, these companies that make billions of dollars, you're just going to mess with their billions of dollars and they're just going to let you because you are friends with Oprah or something like that? It ain't going to fly. It ain't that easy. You can't just get in there and start waving your magic wand and let there be peace. I mean, great. I would love for that to happen. I would love for it to happen. I think it should happen. But I think she's disconnected from the reality of the situation. She's falling for the same thing that everyone falls for when they think that if only the right person can get in office, things will change. They never change. They never change. Like the famous Einstein quote, I don't even know if he said it or not, but you can't fix a problem with the same thinking that got you into the mess, right? It's just not the way it's going to work. That's not the solution. The solution is not more government power and control, because even if she was successful at all these things, even if she got in there and everything happened just as she's promising, with the free stuff everywhere, it's not a permanent office. It's not a permanent position. So what that means is she'll be succeeded by someone else in 4 to 8 years. And who's to say that the next person to become president, to take control of the ship, who's to say that they aren't going to take all this newfound power that she's given the government, because she's just believes that the government is inherently good, and so therefore she gave it more power to tax us, more power to control us. Who's to say that someone isn't going to get in office right after her and use that power against all of us?
Thanks for tuning in to the Awareness Revolution Podcast. Be the change you wish to see in the world.